you can see what there's the
There's
one
a
for your
model.
desk that we
Look at
talked
that.
about earlier. There's Landis 3D printing pieces. So we were able to 3D print, but those pieces are based on kit bashing. And it's John Goodson, who's built many, many models for ILM over the years, and he's actually building the physical Razor Crest, old school, doing the LEDs for the engines, yeah. And I think this is John in his garage tooling the motion control device, because who can't do that in their garage? And there's what they built in their garages, literally in their garage studios. The ILM guys built, look, John's laughing because he knows it's ridiculous. And he's building this model. Oh, look there, the AT-AT or AT-AT, I'm not going to debate you. And look there, he's like a lens crafter making these pieces, all him and Hal Hickel. Hal actually went and researched all 3 of the old Star Wars films and figured out all the flight paths and the types of shots that they did.
And the way the star fields would shift and move, and so here's us shooting passes on the stage. So here's how you get the key, and you'll see this is done. Isn't that cool?
It already feels like Luke's X-Wing, right? Right?
And so they're letting us do this for some reason. Because whenever I've worked on something, they're always like, you can't shoot a model, there's the key. And instead of doing it as an optical printed, we're using digital. But you can see the room there. And it really reminds us of the old behind-the-scenes footage. It's just fun for us.
Yeah, they're all down in the basement shooting that up at ILM. And they're all gathered around and evidently having a great time. It's really funny.
And here come the engine passes.
Yeah,
here.
You can see they're off on the side.
Up. They have to do for each lighting setup, and they comp it together. Yeah. And hold on, there's a couple more. These are the.
It's a long process.
So it's fun for us. We like it.
This is what we really do.
Here come the engines.
I know, right?
Oh, come on.
That's the better one.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So anyway, we're putting all that together, and we're having a really good time.
This is really cool.
Hi everyone, it's Charlie. They just showed off a big preview of the Star Wars Mandalorian live-action TV series that's going to be premiering this November with the launch of the Disney Plus streaming service. So we'll explain what's going on, who the characters are. They revealed a whole bunch of details about the series and then showed off this promo reel. I'll be doing episode videos, Easter eggs for the series when it gets here. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. Obviously, this premieres in November. We have episode 9 in December, so there'll be a lot of Star Wars stuff happening at the end of the year. But the funny thing about the panel, Pedro Pascal, the main character, Oberyn Martell from Game of Thrones. Tonight is Game of Thrones night because it's season 8, episode 1 in a couple hours. So just a whole lot of Game of Thrones related stuff happening, both in the Star Wars universe and in real life. But as you saw during the preview, they're doing a lot of model work on the series. The ship is called the Razor Crest. That's his main ship. It's just a repurposed old military surplus ship. The main character, as you know, Pedro Pascal, is just called the Mandalorian right now. They haven't given him a real name. They refer to him as Mando, Mandalorian, so I don't know if they're going to actually reveal his real name during the course of the TV series, where it's one of those deals like where Boba Fett never takes his helmet off, but obviously we know it's Pedro Pascal, so I assume that this character will take his helmet off every once in a while. They say it picks up 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and part of the reason for putting it during this period is because it was such a chaotic time, because there was still vestiges of the Empire causing all kinds of chaos in the galaxy. Pedro Pascal says he spends most of his time in the outer regions, but I think that he meant the Outer Rim territories. For the most part, it's underworld characters, so if you were mad about the Star Wars Underworld game that almost got made a long time ago, and it was just meant to be the really seedy side of the Star Wars universe, that's what this series is going to cover. They did say that there were a lot of other big characters that you would see pop up, but they didn't reveal a whole bunch of stuff. They didn't get too spoilery with it. There was a behind-the-scenes featurette they showed off that they did not post online. They didn't allow anyone to record it, but you see Giancarlo Esposito, Gus Fring from Breaking Bad, flying a TIE fighter, so presumably he's an Imperial character. They showed off a couple scenes starting with Carl Weathers' character Greef offering bounty to Pedro Pascal's Mandalorian character. He says, "What's your highest bounty?" And Greef responds, "Not much, about 5,000. The Mandalorian gets pissed and says, "That won't even cover fuel these days." Greef concedes and says, "Well, there is one job, but it'll be dangerous." Then you get a shot of the Mandalorian walking through a market with a bunch of aliens and droids. You see a Salacious Crumb-looking alien being roasted for food on a spit, then another one in a cage. He knocks on a door and an eyeball piece comes out just like a Jabba's palace during Return of the Jedi. The door opens, there's another droid that looks exactly like one from the original Death Star during A New Hope. He enters another room with a whole bunch of stormtroopers in it. You see a shot of Werner Herzog's character, who notes to him, Grief Karga said that you were coming. There's a doctor that wanders into the room. The Mandalorian almost shoots him, but the stormtroopers pull their guns out, noting, "We'll have you 4-1. But the Mandalorian isn't worried because he's a badass. He says, "I like those odds." Their gunslinger standoff ends, and Werner Herzog's character hands the Mandalorian some cargo. There's more sizzle reel footage of him fighting Gina Carano's character, who's another bounty hunter, then fighting some more stormtroopers. They even said that there was a scene that they needed a whole bunch of stormtroopers for, and they didn't have enough on set, so they actually called up the 501st people to come be a part of the series, but they wouldn't let them take any pictures or tell them what they were filming for. The two other characters on the panel were Gina Carano and Carl Weathers' characters. So she plays Cara Dune. She's just another bounty hunter that used to be an ex-rebel shock trooper that's just having trouble reintegrating into society post-war. Carl Weathers is playing a character named Grief Marga. I believe that's his name. I haven't seen it written down yet, and a couple of the people on the panel pronounced it differently. He's the head of the Bounty Hunters Guild that the Mandalorian character and Gina Carano's Cara Dune character belong to, and obviously there are a lot of other bounty hunter characters that belong to it. There was a picture of IG-88 that Jon Favreau posted a little while ago, making it seem like he was going to be a part of the series. Maybe he'll be part of this Bounty Hunter Guild. The way they describe the story is that it picks up with Grief Marga, Carl Weathers' character, hiring Pedro Pascal's Mandalorian bounty hunter character to go after a product that's quote-unquote very valuable and bring it to someone else for a very, very large sum of money. The rumor is that very special cargo is actually a little girl that he has to protect through the course of the series. So as you would expect is in the vein of a samurai film or a Clint Eastwood western a la Man with No Name, Pedro Pascal even specifically called out Clint Eastwood. Yeah, my character's got a lot of Clint Eastwood in him. So if you're a big fan of those western films, it's going to be a lot like that. There are a lot of people that are wondering now if they actually just took Josh Trank's idea for a Boba Fett western and turned that into this series, but it sounds like Jon Favreau came up with this separately because he's the one that said he pitched it to Lucasfilm. It wasn't Lucasfilm going to him with the idea. The reason why Dave Filoni is on the project is because he's sort of like the resident Jedi master when it comes to TV series at Star Wars, so Lucasfilm paired him up with Jon Favreau to produce the series. They actually worked together on Clone Wars before because Jon Favreau voiced the character Pre Vizsla, who wielded the Darksaber for a long time. They even told the story about how George Lucas had to create the Darksaber because they needed the Mandalorians to wield a weapon that could stand up to a lightsaber, and the vibroblades wouldn't do it. George Lucas is like, no way, the lightsaber would cut right through one of those. We need to give you something more powerful. So he came back a couple days later and was like, I got something for you. I just created something called the Darksaber.
For Mandalore!
The two of them originally met on Skywalker Ranch when Jon Favreau was doing the sound mix for the very first Iron Man film way back in 2007 before the 2008 premiere. And Dave Filoni was working on Clone Wars Season 1 also at the Skywalker Ranch separately. So they got to talking and they showed each other their work, and he was like, hey, I got a new character we just came up with. It's a Mandalorian named Pre Vizsla. Do you want to voice him? So that's how Jon Favreau wound up working on the Clone Wars series. Favreau even said that when he was pitching the Mandalorian series to the Star Wars powers that be, he sent the scripts that he was writing ahead of time to Dave Filoni to read, just to ask him what he thought about it. So if you're a fan of Jon Favreau's storytelling, you're a fan of Dave Filoni's work in the Star Wars universe, it just sounds like they have the best of both worlds there. They didn't say how many episodes it's going to be. I'm assuming somewhere between 8 and 10 episodes, and they didn't say how many seasons they plan on going, hopefully at least 5, but they're spending so much money on it that I think it's going to look pretty amazing, and it'll just be a side of the Star Wars universe that we haven't spent a lot of time in. And remember that there aren't going to be any Star Wars films for a good long while after Star Wars Episode 9. The CEO of Disney confirmed that there's an official hiatus on Star Wars movies. Now, I think that's only going to be for a couple years before they announce plans, because the Game of Thrones producers are still developing their Star Wars trilogy, which is rumored to be in the Old Republic era, but we don't know much about that. Rian Johnson's also still developing his trilogy separately, but neither one of those will drop for probably the next 4 to 5 years. It's going to be a long time before we find out what those are going to be. So for the next couple of years, the only brand new Star Wars live-action content that we're getting is going to be from all these Disney Plus series they're doing. There's the Mandalorian series, which is premiering November 12th as of right now. There's going to be a Star Wars Rogue One series that they'll do. That won't premiere till either next year or the year after. Then there's the rumored live-action Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Remember the Obi-Wan movie that we heard about that was in development? It sounds like it's just going to be a TV series now, which I think is actually better. You get way more Obi-Wan content. Just a reminder though, Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 1 is premiering tonight. My video for that will post after the episode airs, just like I do every year. It'll be the same schedule of videos